and set my screen up here. Okay. So this lesson, all about summarization. So we're going to define that term. We're going to identify significant information and summarize an author's main point. So this goes together with yesterday, right, where we identified main ideas and then supporting details. So as part of that, once you identify main ideas and details, you can then summarize. You can paraphrase what the author is saying. Like, and we do this all the time, right? It doesn't have to be something that we've read. You watch a movie or a new TV show and you tell your friend or your family member about it. You don't sit there and tell them every detail, right? You don't take an hour to explain an hour. You summarize, you hit the high points, you talk about some of the details.
The characters.
The characters, right? Yeah, just the main significant things. So we got our little bit of audio here. I'll go ahead and start that.
When you summarize, you restate the main points of the text in your own words. The first step in summarizing is to locate the main ideas. A summary should include all of the main ideas, assertions, or findings, as well as other significant information the author provides. Questions that begin with who, what, when, where, why, and how can help you identify ideas to include.
Right, exactly. So you think about, like you mentioned, the characters. If you're explaining a novel or movie or TV show, something like that. So it's all about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Those are the questions you ask when you're summarizing. And these are really important for the test, right? This is part of that kind of critical thinking and reasoning through language arts that you're going to have to do when you get to some of those passages and you have to think about what you've just read. So really important skills to have as we move forward through the class. Okay, and we have a passage here just like before, like we did yesterday. We'll have several of these to read through as we summarize. So I'll go ahead and get started reading here. So title, remember, really important, right? That clues you into what's going to go on. So how a false memory can be created. Psychological research has shown various ways false memories are created, such as through the power of suggestion or through vivid imagination. Now, scientists studying imagination have found that people who watched a video of someone else doing a simple action often didn't remember and thought they had done it themselves when asked about it 2 weeks later. This is a completely new type of false memory, says Gerald Echterhoff, a psychology professor at the University of Munster in Germany, and co-author of the paper published in the September issue of the journal Psychological Science. This is a false memory from just observing someone, he says. Psychologist Daniel Schachter of Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, who has edited a book on false memories, say, it sounds like an extension of earlier work that has shown imagining you've done something can result in false memories. And that's an article from USA Today in 2010, false memories. Did you lock the door or just imagine it? And our text box is here on the side. So this passage presents important information about the key findings of a psychological study on how false memories are formed. And then judgments about the study are provided as quotations by the author of the passage and by an expert on the subject, not by the writer of the summary. So that's important too, right? Quotation marks is setting off exact language that somebody else has said. You always use that to express somebody else's words, and you try to cite them somehow too, just like they did here. Like they say, this is a false memory from just observing someone, he says, and they're talking about the doctor of psychology. Okay, so now we're at the end of the lesson. So we're going to scroll down and should take us to next activity. So it's going to be student book, lesson 2, summarize.
Quiz, or that's what mine says.
Quiz. Yes, we should be on. We'll make sure, before we move on. Student book, Lesson 2, summarize, quiz. Make sure we're all in the same place here before I hit start. All right. And we'll start. Okay. So here, how false memory can be created. Let's see here. Is this the same passage? Yeah. So psychological research has shown various ways false memories are created, such as through the power of suggestion or through vivid imagination. Now, scientists studying imagination have found that people who watched a video of someone else doing something is a simple action. So we got the same passage here. And for our test taking tip, news articles often summarize important events, including studies and new discoveries. As you read a news article, think about what is the key piece of new information. And like we keep saying, the title can give you a clue. But just in general, as you're preparing for the exam, try to read as much as you can. Now, I know it's tough. We all have busy lives and everything, but if you could set aside like 15, 20 minutes a day to, read the newspaper or pick up a new book and read like a chapter a night or something like that. It's something that I got back to doing over the last year because I was so focused on school and everything. And I just having to read all the time for school as a history major. You just read. And then over the last year, I kind of gotten away from it and just sort of one of those sort of like New Year's type resolutions, or an unspoken one at least, I started reading again. And nothing is going to help you, get through this test and life, honestly, than reading. All right, so which sentence best summarizes the new study's conclusion on false memories? So is it the power of suggestion and imagination create false memories? Researchers and psychologists have concluded a new study on false memories. Watching a video, someone performing an action can result in a false memory, or the study is an extension of earlier work on false memories. Power of suggestion and imagination create false memories. In this case, we're thinking about the new study. It's C.
Watching a video.
Watching a video of someone performing. That's right. So they're not thinking about the whole idea of false memory. What they're looking for is the video, right? That was the research that was performed. So that's the study. C. Okay, now we have Richard Nixon. And let's see what they say here. So Richard Nixon defends himself. So you probably already got some idea what this might be about. Let's see what we have here. So this is, I'm gonna go ahead and look and see what the citation is. So this is from Checkers by Rich. Okay, so it's from 1952. Okay, so I'm interested. Let's see what happens here. So it says, I come before you tonight as a candidate for the vice presidency and as a man whose honesty and integrity have been questioned. So this is what before he's vice president for Eisenhower. Now, the usual political thing to do when charges are made against you is to either ignore them or to deny them without giving details. I believe we've had enough of that in the United States, particularly with the present administration in Washington, D.C. To me, the office of the vice presidency of the United States is a great office, and I feel that the people have got to have confidence in the integrity of the men who run for that office and who might obtain it. Sure, this is supposed to be 2 words, men who. That is not a word. I have a theory, too, that the best and only answer to a smear or to an honest misunderstanding of the facts is to tell the truth. And that's why I'm here tonight. I want to tell you my side of the case. I'm sure that you have read the charge and you've heard it, that I, Senator Nixon, took $18,000 from a group of my supporters. The question is, was it morally wrong? I say that it was morally wrong if any of that $18,000 went to Senator Nixon for my personal use. I say that it was morally wrong if it was secretly given and secretly handled. And I say that it was morally wrong if any of the contributors got special favors for the contribution that they made. And now to answer those questions, let me say this. Not 1 cent of the $18,000 or any other money of that type ever went to me for my personal use. Every penny of it was used to pay for political expenses that I did not think should be charged to the taxpayers of the United States. It was not a secret fund. Do you think that when I or any other senator makes a political speech, has it printed, should charge the printing of that speech and the mailing of that speech to the taxpayers? Do you think, for example, when I or any other senator makes a trip to his home state to make a purely political speech, that the cost of that trip should be charged to the taxpayers? Do you think when a senator makes political broadcasts that the expense of those broadcasts should be charged to the taxpayer? Well, I know what your answer is. It's the same answer that audiences give me whenever I discuss this particular problem. The answer is no. The taxpayer shouldn't be required to finance items which are not official business, but which are primarily political business. So, which statement best summarizes Nixon's reason for making a speech? A, he wanted to question the charges made against him. B, he wanted to do the political thing by ignoring or denying charges. C, he wanted to accuse the present administration of wrongdoing. Or D, he wanted to present details about his side of the charges. So how will we summarize this one?
B.
Well, he's not denying the charges, is he? He's addressing them.
I think
So-
it's D as in dog.
D, yes, D. He wanted to present details about his side of the charge. That's basically what he's doing here. Again, you get tipped off there. Richard Nixon defends himself, right? So that lends itself right to the summary here that he wanted to present details about his side of the charge. Okay, 3. So which statement best summarizes the last sentence in paragraph 2? So right here, we'll reread it real quick. So to me, the office of the vice presidency of the United States is a great office. I feel that the people have got to have confidence in the integrity of the men who run for that office and who might obtain it. So is he saying he should be elected vice president? People should trust those who hold the office, the important office of vice president. He has the integrity, inspires the people's confidence to be vice president. Or
B.
B as in boy?
Yes.
Yeah, B. So, right, he is saying he's not talking about himself. He's talking about the office and what it represents. So B, they should trust those people with the who's in that office. Okay. And here, which statement best summarizes Nixon's view about what would make taking the money morally wrong? So taking the money would be wrong if A, it were used personally, contributed secretly, or guaranteed special treatment.
Yeah.
A, yeah. I mean, that's one of those two. It's kind of common sense, right? You can kind of zero in, immediately think, well, yeah, that's morally wrong if it were used for personal use or contributed secretly or any of that stuff. So, and then the other ones, are sort of antithesis to that. He didn't declare the money on his tax returns or anything. We didn't hear anything about that. And C, if it were used for printing and mailing political speeches or making political broadcasts. So A is the correct answer there. And yeah, again, some of these you can just laser in on real quick. And here, which statement best summarizes Nixon's explanation of why he took the money? He took it as a result of a misunderstanding. B, he needed the money to cover certain personal expenses. C, he knew that nothing was morally wrong in taking the money. Or D, he took the money for political expenses, which taxpayers should not have to cover.
It's what sounds like D as in dog.
There you go, D, right? So nothing morally wrong about accepting money if it's to cover expenses that the taxpayer should not. And that really, that last sentence really summarizes his defense. It's not morally wrong. This was not secret money. We didn't use it for personal, things. I used it for political reasons, so the taxpayer would not have to cover that expense. So D is the correct answer there. Okay, now we'll submit. Only 5 questions there. Let's see how we do. Green check, green check, green check, green check, green check. Okay.
I accidentally clicked the wrong answer on one, and I'm the one who gave the answer. That's crazy.
Okay, that's fine. more important that you know the right answer, right?
Which one is to number one?
Number one is C. And I'll run through it real quick here. 1 is C, 2 is D, 3 is B, 4 is A, and 5 is D. Okay. And I'm not going to hit close. We'll just go down to next activity once you submit. Next activity, workbook, lesson 2. Give everybody a moment, make sure they're on the right place there. Yeah, workbook, lesson 2, summarize. And you'll notice here at the top of these lessons, a lot of times they'll show you, so like, we just did 2.1, 2.2, all of the lessons that have similar ideas. And when we get down to lesson 5, we're going to be expanding on what we do here. And then when we get to 6, we'll be adding to it. So you'll notice that along the way that it'll start including more lessons as far as things you may want to review and things that are going to be related to other lessons. So just reviewing here, a summary is briefly highlights the main points and important details of the text. And it should summarize, it should restate the ideas in the text in your own words, and you want to hit all the main points. So summary should not contain your own opinions, beliefs, or judgments. That's the other thing. You might say, I watched, I don't know, what did we watch last night, Lisa? We didn't watch anything, did we?
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to think of something I watched on TV recently. I watched Black Widow last week. And it's Black Widow. It's about the Marvel character. She's one of the Avengers, and this is about her.
Childhood.
This, that. Yeah, it's about her childhood and everything. Okay, so somebody else has seen it. Great.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. We really liked it. But I could give all those details, right? You could say, she was going back. She was dealing with, how she was created as this assassin and spy. But and all that's details. But then if I said, and I really hated it, then that's opinion, right? That has nothing to do with actual summary. If you were reviewing it, yeah, that's where that will come in, and you'll see that in a lot of reviews, like people, on YouTube that make review videos, or you read one, they summarize first, and they might have that spoiler alert because they throw out something that nobody wants to know. But a good reviewer has to summarize the movie. But once you start adding opinion, that's no longer summary, right? You're going into different territory there. But that other part is all about reviewing. Okay, so then more on our false memory study. So I'll read through it here. We'll get to the text boxes in a second. So this is from the same study that we looked at just a minute ago. So it says, in this study, as well as in several follow-up experiments, the majority of participants misremembered, thinking that they had done something they had merely observed. Since the first research on 170 participants, findings have been replicated with almost 500 participants, he says. The paper details 3 different experiments in which participants read about or actually performed a series of simple actions, such as shaking a bottle or shuffling a deck of cards. Then they watched videos of someone else doing simple actions, some of which they had done and some they had only seen being done. 2 weeks later, they were asked which of as many as 30 actions they had done themselves. Researchers found the subjects were much more likely to falsely remember doing an action if they had watched someone else do it, which is kind of a scary thing when you think about it. So in our text box, right, it says this paragraph, as pointing to the top there, summarizes key elements of the study about false memory. The author organizes information sequentially using the words then and 2 weeks later. So it's something else to look for, like we mentioned with transition words and things. Look for certain words that are going to trigger a shift in ideas a shift in time, all of that. And then our second text box, understanding the main idea of the passage will help you summarize it. This section tells readers the results of the study. And, that's good writing also makes it easier to summarize and review. Poor writing, sometimes it's hard to get through. As in academia, I wrote a lot of academic histories, and they know that other academics are reading their books, so they will just come straight out and tell you, like in the introduction, my argument is this, and that way, you don't have to. There's no confusion, and then when you discuss it later, or you're writing a review or something of that book, there's no questions. It's explicitly stated. So I'm hitting start. That's going to take us into the workbook and our questions. Okay. And then a little bit here using logic. So a good summary must capture the main idea of the paragraph or the section or the whole passage, not just specific details of it. When choosing the best summary, eliminate answers that do not state the main idea. So, that's the whole point. You don't want to ramble on in your summary. Like we're talking about Black Widow, I could say, yeah, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, she has red hair and, she kicks butt and she uses guns and all this stuff. That's going to get really, that's going to exhaust somebody if they're looking for a summary, right? So you got to know, where the details are. So, that's something you have to consider. Make sure it's detail oriented, make sure it sticks to the main points. You can eliminate a lot, right? It's a process of elimination with summary. Okay, so getting to our passage here, our first question, which sentence best summarizes the passage? So A, most of the study's participants misremembered their action. B, the study's findings have been replicated by other studies. C, people misremembered an action after watching someone else do it. D, most people misremembered. What was that? A?
C.
It's C. This is the other thing you have to read the question and think about, a lot of this comes up in the study and in that reading. But the main point of this one passage is that they misremembered an action after watching someone else do it. That's the one thing where they'll try to catch you with some of these answers is they'll have other details in there. They'll have stuff that sounds like, like D there, most people misremembered an action after reading about it. Well, they weren't really reading, right? They were watching them. So you have to be sort of detail oriented when you check your answers. Okay. Same passage. So what is the function of the last sentence in the passage? So right here, A, it summarizes the passage. Yeah, researchers found that subjects were more likely to falsely remember doing an action if they had watched someone else do it. That's the whole thing. That's another clue when you're reading. We'll get into this a little more down the road, but like we talked about yesterday, your main ideas, in your paragraph, you're going to have a topic sentence. You will also have a closing. And like I mentioned with academic writing, there'll be a whole section in the back of that book that's called the conclusion. And it's a summary, and it restates the argument, and then it caps it off with, a final sort of idea. So always look for that. These clues will help point you in that direction when you get down the road and you're looking for those summaries and stuff. So A, it certainly takes everything, wraps it up. You're going to use this in writing as well. You'll conclude your paragraphs and you'll conclude like your writing exercises with, a little summary of what you just talked about. Okay, new passage. Let me get a drink of water here. Okay, so this, remember, title is important. Concerns about juvenile offenders. All right, here we go. So The number of minors being held in adult jails and prisons in this country has dropped substantially, according to a new study based on federal data. That's welcome news. Criminologists warn that juvenile offenders who are thrown in with adult prisoners are exposed to social pressures and develop personal contacts that make it far more likely that they will become career criminals than those held in juvenile facilities. The study shows that the number of minors being held in adult facilities has decreased by 38% since 1999 because of reductions in juvenile crime and arrest, among other factors. The number of children held in juvenile facilities also fell. Congress can consolidate these gains by using aid to impose a clear federal standard. To qualify for federal juvenile justice funds, states should have to certify that people under 18 are not being jailed as adults, except in cases involving heinous crimes like rape and murder. Unfortunately, not all of the new data is encouraging. States still seem to be holding in juvenile facilities a great many children who should instead be treated in therapeutic programs near their homes and families. Children with drug or alcohol problems should be in treatment programs, not juvenile lockups. Therapeutic programs can turn young lives around and reduce crime. The data also showed that too many children are still being confined for minor offenses like truancy, which should be dealt with through community-based programs. Putting truants into juvenile facilities makes it more likely that they will reportedly return to custody and become permanently entangled in the system. Congress, which tried to end this practice with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act of 1974, should close the loophole that allows states to continue confining truants. Another case for concern is the significant racial and ethnic disparities that show up in juvenile justice data. The decline in the juvenile custody rate was significantly greater for whites than for African Americans, who account for less than 15% of the youth population, but nearly 40% of those in confinement. And that was from New York Times editorial, Some Progress on Kids in Jails, 2008. So here, which sentence best summarizes the results of the study? A, less juvenile crime has caused fewer minors to be placed into the adult prison population. Fewer minors are being held in both juvenile and adult detention facilities. C, the number of minors held in adult detention facilities has decreased by 38% since '99, or juvenile offenders thrown in with adult prisoners are likely to become career criminals.
C?
I say
It's
B.
B. B is in boy. And just think, the title there, Some Progress on Kids and Jails, well, I think a little crazy there. And then, concerns about juvenile, but we start off with, the number of minors being held in adult jails, prisons in the country has dropped substantially, according to a new study. So that's your topic sentence right there at the top of the passage. All right, so number 3 is B. Number 4, which sentence best summarizes the information in paragraph 4? So not all the results of the study were positive. Many youthful offenders need therapy. Children with drug or alcohol problems should be in facilities near their homes. Or D, therapy can help reduce crime by helping young offenders find work. So 4 right there, not all of the data is encouraging. States still hold juveniles facilities, a great many children who should instead be treated in therapeutic programs near their homes and families. Children with drug or alcohol programs should be in treatment programs, not juvenile lockups. Therapeutic programs can turn young lives around and reduce time.
B?
B, yeah. So cluing in on that last sentence, right, which is kind of a ending sentence, wraps up the paragraph. It says, many youthful offenders need therapy rather, another misspelling, than time in juvenile lockups. And you guys are kind of, you're getting zeroed in on this idea. You can look for hints along the way. Again, like when you're reading, I mentioned like reading for school, we got to the point I had to read so many books, and you just don't have time, when you're assigned like 5 books in a week to get through them all. So the trick was you read the introduction, you find the argument, you get the main points out of the introduction. Then you go back, you read the conclusion, you get the rest of the details, you get the argument stated again, and then you read what you can in the middle to get more evidence and more context. So same idea applies here. These short passages, you should be able to read them all, but really think about the first sentence and the last sentence, and that's going to give you a better understanding, a clearer eye picture, and a better way for you guys to summarize. You don't get caught up too much in the details. So which sentence best states the idea of paragraph 5? Is it the study that too many minors are being held? Congress should close the loophole that allows states to hold minors? Truancy is a major cause for minors to be confined as juveniles? Or community-based organizations should deal with children's minor offenses? So paragraph 5.
D?
It is D, right? And we see at the top, data shows that too many children are still being confined for minor offenses like truancy, which should be dealt with through community-based programs. At the end, Congress, which tried to end this practice with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Provision Act of 1974, should close the loophole that allows states to continue confining truants. And then D, right? Community-based organizations should deal with children's minor offenses. Okay, let's see, 6. Okay, how is paragraph 6 related to the rest of the passage? Does it summarize the results of the study? Does it focus on detail of the summary in paragraph 5? It focuses on a detail of the summary in paragraph 5. It adds more information about the results of the study. Or D, it summarizes the one negative result of the study. So looking at paragraph 6, the last paragraph there. What do you guys think? Is it summarizing? Is it adding in more information? Or is it adding negative results of the study?
C.
It is C. It's adding more information about the results of the study. Yeah, good job. All right. So C for 6. Okay, one more passage here. So let us continue. So for 32 years, Capitol Hill has been my home. I have shared many moments of pride with you, pride in the ability of the Congress of the United States to act, to meet any crisis, to distill from our differences strong programs of national action. An assassin's bullet has thrust upon the awesome burden of the presidency. I am here today to say I need your help. I cannot bear this burden alone. I need the help of all Americans and all America. This nation has experienced a profound shock, and in this critical moment, it is our duty, yours and mine, as the government of the United States, to do away with uncertainty and doubt and delay, and to show that we are capable of decisive action, that from the brutal loss of our leader, we will derive not weakness, but strength, that we can and will act now. From this chamber of representative government, let all the world know, and none misunderstand, that I rededicate this government to the unswerving support of the United Nations, to the honorable and determined execution of our commitments to our allies, to the maintenance of military strength second to none, to the defense of the strength and the stability of the dollar, to the expansion of our foreign trade, to the reinforcement of our programs of mutual assistance and cooperation in Asia and Africa, and to our alliance for progress in this hemisphere. On the 20th day of January in 1961, John F. Kennedy told his countrymen that our national work would not be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet, But he said, let us begin. Today, in this moment of new resolve, I would say to all my fellow Americans, let us continue. And that is LBJ in 1963. I was already thinking, you know, I can make inferences about who was talking at the top here when, you know, it said a bullet has from an assassin. I was thinking, oh, this is LBJ. And then we get down to the fourth paragraph there and, you know, they start talking about Kennedy. So I figured, yeah, that's got to be Johnson. But anyway, let's take a look here at the questions, see what we have. So what sentence or which sentence best summarizes Johnson's message in paragraph 1? That Capitol Hill has been his home for 32 years. He cannot bear this burden alone during a critical moment. He feels great pride in Congress and the country. He needs American support at this critical time. So what can we say about paragraph 1? So if we look at the end there, right? It says, I am here today to say I need your help. I cannot bear this burden alone. I need the help of all Americans and all America. So is that D?
I'm muted. B.
B, it is D as in dog, right? So looking at the last part of that paragraph again, it says, I am here today to say I need your help. I cannot bear this burden alone. I need the help of all Americans and all America. And then D, he needs American support at this critical time. Okay, just about halfway there. So again, summarizing the information of paragraph 2. A, assassination of JFK was a terrible event for the nation. B, the nation must act with strength and determination despite the death of its leader. C, the unwillingness of Congress to take action has left the country paralyzed. Or D, the government has a duty to act without further delays. So paragraph 2 says we've faced a profound shock in this critical moment. We skip down a little bit. That from the brutal loss of our leader, we will derive not weakness, but strength, that we can and will act and act now. So how do we summarize? B is in boy. Yeah. So the nation must act with strength and determination despite the death of its leader. Okay. And then what purpose does paragraph 3 serve in the speech? Does it summarize the programs and policies for which Johnson seeks support? Does it summarize major changes in American policy for which Johnson is responsible? C, is it summarizing Kennedy's major achievements as president? Or D, summarize Johnson's past achievements as vice president? So looking at paragraph 3. Let all the world know and none misunderstand that I rededicate this government to the unswerving support of the UN, to the honorable and determined execution of our commitments to allies, maintenance of military. So A, right? He's not changing policy. He doesn't mention Kennedy until the end, right? And then it doesn't really say anything about his past achievements. So process of elimination and then reviewing that, it's certainly A, is that he's summarizing programs and policies that they're going to recommit. Okay. And then how do the final words of the speech, let us continue, summarize the overall message? The final word, the final words, A, express Johnson's hope that Kennedy will not be forgotten. B, emphasize Johnson's point that he cannot bear the burden of the presidency without support. C, refer to the need for following the policies and programs that Kennedy began. Or D, express the need for starting over as a nation. So today in this moment of new resolve, I would say to all my fellow Americans, let us continue.
So D.
Emphasize points that he cannot bear the burden of the presidency without support. That is the beginning.
I said D, as in dog.
D is in dog. Okay, it's C. It's C as in cat. So he's referring to the need for the following of the policies and programs that Kennedy began. So right, that idea. Let us continue. So let us continue on with supporting those programs. Yeah. Okay, we might have one new passage. We got 4 questions left. All right, let's do this. So Indifference, that's the title. Let's see what we get here. So over there, behind the black gates of Auschwitz, the most tragic of all prisoners were the Muselmänner, as they were called. Wrapped in their torn blankets, they would sit or lie on the ground, staring vacantly into space, unaware of who or where they were, strangers to their surroundings. They no longer felt pain, hunger, thirst. They feared nothing. They felt nothing. They were dead and did not know it. Rooted in our tradition, some of us felt that to be abandoned by humanity then was not the ultimate. We felt that to be abandoned by God was worse than to be punished by him. In a way, to be indifferent to that suffering is what makes the human being inhuman. Indifference, after all, is more dangerous than anger and hatred. Anger can at times be creative. One writes a great poem, a great symphony. One does something special for the sake of humanity because one is angry at the injustice that one witnesses. But indifference is never creative. Even hatred at times may elicit a response. You fight it, you denounce it, you disarm it. Indifference elicits no response. Indifference is not a response. Indifference is not a beginning, it is an end. And therefore, indifference is always the friend of the enemy, for it benefits the aggressor, never his victim, whose pain is magnified when he or she feels forgotten. The political prisoner in his cell, the hungry children, the homeless refugees, not to respond to their plight, not to relieve their solitude by offering them a spark of hope, is to exile them from human memory, and in denying their humanity, we betray our own. Indifference, then, is not only a sin, it is a punishment. And this is one of the most important lessons of this outgoing century's wide-ranging experiments in good and evil. So that's Ellie, I think it's Ellie Wiesel, The Perils of Indifference from 1999. Okay, so the author's main idea in paragraph 1 is that the Muselmänner are tragic because they are A, prisoners in Auschwitz, B, are about to die, C, feel hunger, thirst, and pain, or D, have lost their connection with life.
D.
It's
D as in dog.
D, yeah, as in dog. They've lost their connection with life. Right, last few sentences here. They feared nothing, they felt nothing, they were dead, did not know it. They no longer felt pain, hunger, or thirst. D, okay. And then 12, yeah. Which statement best summarizes why the author believes indifference is more dangerous than anger or hatred? Because no creativity or response comes from indifference. Anger and hatred go away quickly. Indifference can lead to creative actions. Or D, anger and hatred are simpler emotions than indifference.
C.
Is it A?
It's B. Oh, I'm sorry. No. A. I'm sorry. A. No creativity or response comes from indifference. So that's why it's more dangerous, right? Okay. And 13. Which statement best summarizes what the author means by saying that indifference is an end? A, indifference occurs after anger and hatred. B, indifference the last step before death. C, indifference does not lead to action or result in a response to suffering. Or D, indifference is the goal of people who aim to hurt others. Check out paragraph 4. Indifference elicits no response. Indifference is not a response. It's not a beginning.
It's the end. So is it B?
It's C,
C.
right?
I was
Indifference
gonna
does
say
not,
C too.
right? It's does not lead to action or result in a response of suffering. And there towards the end, not to relieve their solitude by offering them a spark of hope, is to exile them from human memory. And in denying their humanity, we betray our own. Okay, last one. So, which sentence is the best summary of the author's view of indifference? Indifference punishes people by denying them their humanity. Indifference can be good as well as evil. Indifference is equal to hatred because both hurt people. Indifference is something that must be fought by aggressors. What are we looking for there?
A.
A, yeah. Indifference punishes people by denying them their humanity. And that's, you think about what we see here, particularly that first paragraph, is a good introduction, right? We can see people that are losing their humanity. So, that's going to be a major theme in the rest of the piece. And a lot of that is caused by indifference. All right, so I'm going to submit our answers. Submit. Okay. And go ahead and stop recording.